Ahoy, hoy. So 2 days ago, Apple held their remote version of WWDC 2020, or as we in the business call it, WW 2020. It was interesting because of COVID, obviously, they didn't hold it live like they typically do. Usually they have big fans. I've been in it, as you can see here from my WW 14 jacket. They give you some form of clothes so you can feel like you're part of the club. Still fits, that's a good thing. So anyhow, lots of interesting announcements. The show itself, as I was saying, typically it's in front of a lot of people, but this time it was your typical what you'd expect from Apple. You know, it was very polished, pre-recorded performance. Didn't lack the humor, didn't lack the great charisma that the executive teams have, and it's always nice to see the heads of the departments and all the different faces behind all the magic that Apple brings to us, and have them talk about their projects. A couple of things that I thought was really interesting that came out of the event. First off was the recognition that these super views shouldn't exist in iOS and iPadOS. And what I mean by that is, when you do Siri and it takes up the whole screen, or if you're watching a video on your phone and the phone rings, it just, the super view covers over top of everything, so it really kind of blocks context of what you're doing. But so now, if the phone rings, you just get a little notification. Do you want to answer the phone? That's great. Siri, you hit the button, it just does the wiggly thing down below, and it just it doesn't block your concentration from what it was you were focusing on. And to be honest, I think that might be one of the most interesting things that they've come out with. It's such a simple idea, but it's just a great way to use the screen better. I love the home screen with the widgets. So widgets can now live on the home screen alongside your apps, which instead of being buried in the Today screen. So it's kind of like taking the Today screen and marrying the two. I think that's super cool. Maps, though, this is kind of goes from between iOS and macOS and iPadOS, all of them. But maps, finally they're getting bikes. I have to use Google Maps all the time because I ride my bike constantly, but it's a waste of time to use Apple Maps when it doesn't have bikes, and it doesn't work like a car. So I'm excited about that, though kind of disappointed when it says it's only going to be in a couple of select big cities in China and the United States. I think this data should be out there already. Please, Apple, let's get this working in Vancouver ASAP. CarPlay, now this was cool. This was really cool. I love the direction they're going with CarPlay in the sense of, and this only works in a BMW 5 currently, but the key is nothing more than an encrypted number, really, okay? So your phone becomes your key for your car. And what's really, really interesting about this is you can actually email your key and give it permissions. Like, for example, you can't go beyond this speed, or you can't, have it between these hours. And you can share your keys with people, and that's really cool. As more and more cars start adopting this service, I think that's something that's going to be really, I don't want to say unique, because I think Tesla has been doing something similar, but all the same, I think it's really, really cool. The Apple Pencil, I have an Apple Pencil for my iPad. I almost never use it. I'm not a fancy artist or a designer, but I do like taking notes with it. My problem is I forget to charge it all the time, but mostly because of lack of need of use. But now they have this handwriting recognition called Scribble. So it now works in any text field, allowing you to jot a quick note without having to put the pencil down to type. And you can also draw rough shapes like stars, octagons, and arrows, and have them automatically convert to prettier computer-drawn shapes by briefly holding the pencil down in place and it finishes the drawing. And I think that's really, really cool. With macOS, Big Sur is the new name. They always have a California, close by, close to home sort of name for their operating systems, but the latest one is Big Sur. They had some interesting updates. It's going to be prettier, blah, 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 blah. To be honest, it's the same complaint that I've always had about macOS. Instead of trying to evolve macOS further, they're just trying to make it more like iOS or iPadOS. And I feel like, I understand there's some security benefits and all that from that, but I just feel like that you lose a lot of control when you start going that way. I like to feel like my computer is my computer, and Apple doesn't have full control of everything. But I wish that iOS would be more like macOS and not the other way around, which seems to be the direction they're going. The watch, I love my Apple Watch. The Apple Watch 5 is such a great device. It's a fantastic device, and the new updates are interesting. interesting because I find it's good for exercise, it's good for telling the time, obviously. But beyond that, I haven't found too much benefit. Face sharing, I think, is cool. That's a feature where I can actually share the face that I'm using or my select perspective of the complications and everything, so I can now share that with my friends and family. That's really cool. Multiple complications and apps, I think this is really, really cool. You're not going to really understand, I think, until you actually experience it. But each app on watchOS can now offer multiple different watch face complications instead of just one per app. So we're going to be able to get a lot more information on that watch view, and I think that's really cool. It has sleep tracking. I keep hearing about sleep tracking. I guess it's not something that interests me enough to really look into, but great. I'm sure I'll give it a try. Hand washing detection. I think that's trying a little too hard, but it'll actually count down as you're washing your hands. So for all of those who, all of us who should be keeping hygienic with our hands for reasons of COVID and others, it gives you a clock. Okay, I guess that's great. Maybe if I was a 6-year-old with a $700 Apple Watch, it'd be great. I think this is really cool. They're really thinking privacy, and I think this is important. First thing, approximate location, and this is really neat. Apps don't need to know your exact location, okay? Yelp, to give me context around the restaurants that I need to know. All I need to know is if I'm with a 5-block area, and I can get just as good a service from that. Now there's going to be a mic and a camera indicator on the device. So it's not a hardware light. Like that's always the best. Like, when your camera's on your computer, a light shows on to show that it's working. But now there's going to be a on-screen indicator when an app is accessing the camera or the microphone. And also, this is really cool. This is kind of like, like the nutrition facts on food, so you can really understand what it is you're consuming. Well, Apple wants to take their privacy policies and into a very simply understood, in very similar way. So now app developers will have to provide a simplified highlights of what user data they track or share with third parties, and these summaries will show up prior to downloading in the iOS, macOS app stores. So you can actually know what you're getting yourself into before you make the purchase. AirPods. I love my AirPods. I haven't got the AirPods Pro. I'll probably wait till the next gen come out, but I do love them. But one thing that I really, really love the idea of, because I find I'm stumbling quite a bit between devices when I get a phone call or something like that, but they have now automatic device switching. Last, and I won't save for least, because obviously this was their one big thing at the end, Apple Silicon. They're making their own chips. This isn't really a surprise. Obviously they've been making their own chips for the iPad and the iPhones, and again, this is the integration to make the Mac more like an iPad and an iPhone. But they're switching from the Intel to custom ARM-based CPUs that Apple's designing in-house. Apple then says that this will bring a whole new level of performance while consuming less energy and allow for things like Apple's secure enclave to come to the Mac. And furthermore, I think they're going to be able to start making iOS apps run on Macs because of it, which is a pretty cool idea. I mean, they're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff with emulation. We're going to have to move, it's going to take a year or two, and they've already planned this quite well. I won't get into the boring details about how it's going to happen, but how, you can port your app over to this new architecture. Either way, WW 2020, I'll give it, 8 out of 10 for new stuff. Everyone wants to hear about the new hardware. It never happens in WW. I guess new hardware could be the Apple Silicon CPUs, but that's not that's just behind the curtain sort of stuff. But either way, I thought there was some great stuff. I'm looking forward to playing with some of the new tech and giving it a try. So until WW 2021, I hope you enjoy some of the new gifts that Apple is bringing to us. Cheers.